Hey, Ileana. Welcome to our third attempt to try and give a little presentation based on the new proposal for the capital campaign. And it's a little different than the last two because we actually have approval now with 98% of you voting for this. So we're excited. But I'm still going to kind of go through this a little bit so everyone kind of knows what we're doing and then give a little push at the end to help with this. So basically, again, as we went through this before, how we got to this point, I think is important to understand. So this started as no surprise to people because phase two was always part of what we were going to do. We're in the middle of a 5-year vision plan. And at the end of it, we were going to start working on phase two because there's so much about our programming that we didn't do in the first phase that we wanted to get accomplished. The thing was, this program got accelerated because of the rapid growth we had. So, but as we were working on this 5-year vision plan, our goal the first few years was to eliminate debt. We didn't want to be in the position of having a long-term debt. So when we started this, we had a $30 million campus, which we have, and we had $5 million in long-term debt. We have worked really, really hard over the last few years to eliminate that. We're down to about 2.2 million left, which is amazing. And I appreciate all that you guys have given toward that. It's been flat out amazing to see you guys just give to that. And it's gotten us in a point where we're able to move ahead when we needed to. But the enrollment growth has also been something which has sped up. So 2 years ago, when I kind of took over, we were right around 406 students. Well, that summer, we all of a sudden bumped up to 473. So we started doing some long-term planning to prepare for it, thinking we'd still have another couple years yet. This year, we were projected to go down to 463 students. We had a large senior class and a small feeder school class. Well, that didn't work out really well for us in a good way. We ended up around 500 kids. So the growth has just been exponential over the last 2 years. We've gained about 100 students. And everyone asks me all the time, why is this? Why so much growth? And there's a few reasons. One is the voucher system is really beneficial to a lot of our families. It has really made Christian education affordable to everybody. Our response to COVID has also got a lot of people involved at Ileana versus what a lot of other schools did. We were able to stay in school. We were able to keep teaching. And also the stories of Ileana. People have started sharing the good news and the great experiences they had with kids here. And we're excited to share that stuff. And those stories are going around to people, and more people are coming because of that. And we're also working on new projection charts because they just haven't been accurate the last few years. So that's kind of which gets us to the place where we at. So I mentioned last year redoing the master plan while we worked on our debt. We met with teachers and staff and people in the Ileana community to address space issues, but just as important, program issues. When we built this place, there was a couple things we didn't do what we wanted to do. We really skimped on vocational programs, and we need to do a much better job of that. We're also to the point where our student services are maxed out on space. We also did not have dedicated spaces for the play, the musical, orchestra, band, choir, those things which we want to really prop up and do a better job of teaching every aspect of our kids. And so that's where we are today. Plus, when we built this building, we built it for 500 kids, and we are maxed, we are crowded, and we are full. And we never want to get to a place where we don't have a spot for a kid to get an awesome Christian education. So that's where we are today. And that's what that proposal was all about. And phase two is about those 5 things. It's about classroom space, community space, vocation, entrepreneurial training, which I'll talk about, worship in the arts, and then student services. So I'm going to walk through what it's going to look like a little bit. But before that, the why. Why is this important? And this is the heart behind all of it. In the end of the day, yes, we're going to be raising money for buildings, but as I've said all the time, it is not about a building. It is about a tool in which we develop a passion for God, people, and the world in each one of these kids. It is laying that foundation, and we only get 4 years to do it. And it's a foundation of truth. It's a foundation of the gospel. It's a foundation that as they leave here, whatever they do, whether it's going to the workforce, whether it's going to college, whether it's just into the relationships in life, that foundation of the gospel is so important to teach them that in every aspect of their education. It's not just in Bible class, it is every class. And that's our heart, and we need the space to do that. So it is about the space, as I've talked about a number of different times, that the programs that we want to do a better job of doing, we don't have space for right now. And you'll see that in a little bit. And it's also combating this time that I found out last year, and you've heard me talk about this a lot, that the average kid spends 5 to 7 hours a day on their phones and social media. And they don't spend 5 to 7 minutes in the Bible and on prayer. And that's the foundation I'm talking about, where we have this ability to teach and to grow and to mentor these kids to build that, so they're not spending as much time in things that aren't gospel building things. And we like to teach them that. So our goal this year, very simply, one of my hearts is for these students to spend 5 to 7 minutes a day in prayer and in the Bible. And we're doing that in chapels. We're doing that all over the place. And that's the foundation we're trying to build here with each kid. Teaching them grit. And we've been doing this a lot in chapels and in our classrooms, this idea that you got to fight, you got to work, not just in a job, but you got to fight in your relationships. You fight for your spouses someday. You fight for your kids. You fight for your faith. That's the kind of gritty graduates that we're trying to build here in these spaces. And I put buffaloes on there, and everyone always looks at me with buffaloes. And it's one of these things. I went to a leadership conference a little while ago talking about to lead and to attack things like buffaloes. And I want to do that in this campaign. I mean, there's a part of me for a while that was a little anxious about raising the amount of money we're asking for, because it's a lot. There's a lot of other people asking for money right now. I get that. So I was a little hesitant in doing this, but I so believe in what we're about here. So we're going to attack this like a buffalo. So out on the range, if there's a storm coming, you have two ways of doing it. You can approach it like a cow, or you can approach it like a buffalo. Buffaloes go directly into the storm because they know that if they go into it, they're going to get through it quicker, and they're going to have less rain, less cold, and they're going to be on the other side of that storm if they attack it with passion, as opposed to a cow who walks the other way. They try and go away from the storm. And in doing that, the storm slowly catches up to them. They stay in the storm longer. Then they get all cranky and discombobulated. Sometimes they walk in the fences because they can't get out of this thing because they don't attack it. So we're going to do that, not just in how we drive in our vision. We're going to attack it like buffaloes. I want to attack this campaign like that. We're going to go after it because this is so important to teaching our kids. And if we can get 750, which is what we're building this for at this point, kids in here building that foundation of the gospel in their heart, boy, what a difference they can make, not only in their individual lives, but their relationships, the community, and the world. So that's the goal. So what's it going to look like? This is an overview of what the potential will look like. And we're talking right now about that dark red spot on the right side of the screen, not the spot on the left right now. So it would be a new footprint. You actually see we'll have some new entrance ways out of Calumet. We're going to redo that parking lot so we have better traffic flow, because anyone who's driven around here during pickup time, and it can get a little dicey. So we're going to try and fix that as well. That's kind of the footprint looking down from a 30,000 foot angle. And as I briefly mentioned, when we built this place for 500, our proposal right now is to make space for another 250, and that's our sophomore and junior class. I'm going to not have this screen up too long because I don't want anyone actually counting, because it's roughly 250 kids out there. But that's what we're looking. That's what we're doing this for right there. That's what this project is all about, those kids. So these are some architectural drawings of what a finished completion of this would look like from Calumet, and that's exciting. That would be the auditorium and vocational wing, and a new entrance and exit. That's what the south side would look like. Right now, that's the entrance to the Ark. You see that entrepreneurial and vocational wing there. And I'll show you what that actually looks like and why we're doing that there. So this might be the quick version, but as I said, the third time through, we want to do it a little quicker. So the easiest way to kind of break this down into sections is colors. So we're doing this phase in 3 different sections. So the first phase is the yellow, and then would be the blue, and then would be the purple. So the yellow is roughly about $9 million. And I'll show you what we're going to get with that. The blue is the vocational. That's about $5 million. And then our goal is to get the shell of the auditorium up, which we're looking at about $7.5 million for that. I mean, it's a big number, but if we do that all together, there's a lot of savings in that. You're not building temporary walls. You're not having to bring people out here. There's some really potential big savings. So that's our goal, is to get that shell up, and then as we move, be able to finish that in the next few years. So what does these get us? Well, the yellow gets us more classroom spaces, dedicated spaces for band and choir, and family and consumer sciences. So you'll see that there. The other thing it does is it gets us two things of expanded commons. Like the commons is this place where community happens at Illiana. It's probably one of the most used spaces here, and it is packed. Like before I walked in here, I had to weave through to get in here during break time. It is very, very crowded. And anyone who has kids here will say they try and avoid it at break time. But it's used from the beginning of the day to the end of the day. Kids gather, they eat, they talk. It's such a vital part. There's worship spaces in there. There's presentations there. We do praise crowd in there. It's such an important space, and we're going to make that a little bigger. And you'll also see one of the issues in this campus right now is everything flows down through the center. There's bottlenecks. Doing this will create circular ways around. So there's a lot more flow throughout this building, which is huge. And you also see those dedicated spaces. So if you go to the second floor, I got a little excited there, you'll see a bunch of classrooms, 4 on the top floor. And then on the left side, you'll see this family and consumer sciences. That's going to be cooking, sewing. This class has grown in popularity. It also talks about childhood development. Right now, they're teaching this class in the industrial kitchen, and they're fighting with the lunch because there's just not enough space. So we're looking for this dedicated space for this. So this would get us about 7 to 8 new learning spaces, and this would be really, really exciting for us. You also see in there, part of this is the darker orange. This is also a couple of new spaces for student services. That program has grown tremendously, and this gets us some dedicated learning spaces to them. So that would be phase 1 of about $9 million. The second phase is the blue. That is the vocational and entrepreneurial. So we're still designing that space a little bit, and I'm going to be looking for some input from people on that. But this is our space where people learn to use their hands, where people learn to be creative, where people learn to problem solve. All incredible skills that we are not probably doing a good enough job here. So this is woods and metals, but a combination of also working with businesses in the local community as well to teach some of those things that we may not be able to teach here. But this also, I emphasize this all the time, we're teaching vocation as entrepreneurial spirit to start businesses, to try things. So many of the people in our community are entrepreneurs, whether it's starting your landscape business, whether it's starting a major company, whether it's starting small things. We want to teach people to be creative, to not have a fear of failure, teaching them basic skills like budgeting and planning and things we do a little bit of, but to build that, because those are skills that everybody needs, regardless of what they're going to go into. So it's really kind of an exciting space, what I'm looking forward to. And in doing that, that gets us to 4 new learning spaces there. But we're also moving our current STEM classes down. So then we get 3 classrooms upstairs. So again, another 7 learning spaces. So in total, we're getting 15 new learning spaces in these first two phases, which would get us to about 750 kids. But then there's the auditorium. People ask me all the time if I miss anything from the old building. And if I do say something, it's always that little old auditorium. It was small. The old wood seats, which if you went to Illiana, they were the same ones from 1940, whenever we started. It was hot. There was no air. We couldn't have 2 chapels together. We couldn't have 1 chapel. We always had to have 2. But there was something about that coziness, that dedicated space for worship, because we were designed and wired for worship. And we don't have a dedicated space for that here. We share the ark, and it works, but it's not ideal. There's a lot of setup. There's a lot of takedown. You're splitting it with everything that happens in there, between testing, between athletics, between plays and musicals and chapels. It's usable, but we want a space, because worship is what we were designed and wired for. And this would be a place for the community to gather, the Illiana community. This isn't just for our students. This is for all of us. It's going to be designed for 1,100 people, and we could gather here. And I have dreams of how we can gather the youth of the community, of all of our feeder schools together to worship together. We've done small things like that, but it's so hard when you don't have a space dedicated to it. It'll be a magnet for the arts, for our choirs, for our bands, for the play and musical. There's so many ideas of why this would be amazing for us. So that's that last spot there. And I think it's such a definition of who we are as people who worship. So that would be the balcony and how everything ties together. So that's a little overview. Again, the goals, which I've kind of already hit on. For vocation entrepreneurial, to teach students to work together with their hands, to create, to work together, to problem solve, to connect to local businesses, to learn those skills for the workplace, and to teach those entrepreneurial skills to grow, start, and maintain these businesses. The student services, to create more classroom space to accommodate our growing student services programs, and to create more individualized spaces for one-on-one direct instruction and tutoring. And then the auditorium, this worship space for the community, for all of us to gather, to create fully functional space for the arts, and to create a warm, inviting space for chapel. If you see that design up there, that's actually South Christian High School in Grand Rapids, Michigan. When we designed our original building, we kind of designed a chapel, and they took our design and kind of tweaked it a little bit. So that's kind of what our goal will be to look like, because that's what we originally kind of designed. During the school day, everyone can gather in the center. There's an intimate feel, but yet there's enough space for the community on the outsides. And then the commons, to create more space for community. Everyone says why community works so well here. Well, partly we created space for it, but two, we emphasize it. Community doesn't just happen. We create times for it between shield groups and after-school activities and impact groups. Community is something we work toward, and we need the spaces for it. It just expands the most used part of the building. That last picture down there would be kind of from the new entrance looking down. As you can see all the way down there, that's the current commons. You can even see the Ebenezer stone down there in the corner if you look very, very carefully. So that's kind of the dream, along with the classrooms, which we just need to teach and to create those targets, more specialized programs, which we need to do a better job of. So all in all, that's kind of what we proposed, and it passed with 98%, but the goal is to take these in chunks. So $9 million for classrooms, we raise that, we go with that. $5 million for vocational entrepreneurial, when we get that, we roll with that. And then $7.5 million, totaling about 22. The more we can do together, the cheaper it is. And we're starting that right now. So you're going to be hearing a lot from us. We're going to be sending out something in the next few weeks, which has pledge cards in it, with kind of overviews, a little bit of what we're doing. That should be in your mail. We're asking you to pledge or give, whatever you can do. And I've heard this from so many people over the years that, well, I don't have much to give. Whatever you can do matters. This place was built by the community, and we need to add to it through the community. So there's going to be a lot more coming in the mail, but anything you can do now, if you have any questions now, feel free to reach out to me. But I'll be reaching out to some people, and our team will be reaching out to you. We'll be having some events. There'll be more information on that coming soon. A couple questions quickly that I've had over the last couple weeks. First, how long are the pledges? We're looking at 3 years, but we're flexible. We can do 2, we can do 4, we can do 5, whatever works for you. Some people have told me, oh, I'm already committed to like one of our feeder schools right now, but can maybe do something a little later. Well, we're willing to start in 2 years. Whatever you can do to make it work with your financials. People ask about debt. Are you going to go into more debt? Well, our original motion from the original campus still stands, that we cannot take out more than $5 million in long-term debt. And that is our goal. I'm committed to that. I also know that you, our board, and me have been committed to lowering debt, and we're going to keep paying down that debt as we continue to raise money. But if we need to get to a spot, we do have that flexibility, but we will never, ever go over that $5 million mark. And I always flip back to looking at what we have. So if we're able to get this $22 million, we would have a almost $52 million facility, and we will never have more than $5 million in debt. That's a great debt ratio. Our goal is to have no debt. That's what I'm working toward. What if you go over 750 students? Is there a cap? There is not a hard cap. We've discussed that being a good number. But as I've said, we don't want to turn kids away from a great Christian education, because I know the difference it makes. As a pastor, I've done over 50 student weddings, and at every wedding, there's almost a table or two of teachers. I know the impact, the lifelong impact that teachers have. Just a couple of weeks ago, some graduates came back in their first year of college, and they wanted to see me, and they said, Mr. Davids, 2 things. One, we were prepared for college, but also we were prepared spiritually. And that's what it makes my heart melt, because that's what it's about. So there is more room in this campus if we need to go over that. but that's what we're looking at right now. What if you don't get the money? Well, if we don't get the money, we're not going to build. But our goal is to get enough money to start in the spring. Because if we start in the spring, we can have this open in a year and a half. So the fall of 2024 is our goal. So we'll have 1 year here where it's going to get a little dicey with space. But we'll be able to figure it out because we're creative people and I have awesome teachers who will teach anywhere. They're that good. And that's the next question. We'll make classrooms out of storage if we have to. We'll teach in the commons. We'll teach in hallways. We'll make it work, but we're tight right now. Do you know a lot of people are asking for money right now? I do. Believe me, I do. But here's the thing. You can look at that negatively or you could look at it positively. Look at the growth of Christian schools and churches right now. This is awesome. We should be celebrating all of this. Yeah, I know it puts a strain on the budgets and on the community. I get all of that. And that's why anything you can do to give is amazing. But I think it's awesome that the feeder schools are growing and our churches are growing and our nonprofits are growing. That's great. We should be excited about this. So I know there's a lot of people, but I also know the faithfulness of this community has been overwhelmingly awesome time and time and time again. Couldn't you just put up a couple classrooms and call it good? We could, but again, that just fixes maybe a quick space issue. It doesn't fix the flow in this building, but it also doesn't fix our program issues, and that's as big a problem as the space. Isn't it going to be easier for pickup and drop off? Yes, we'll fix that. I explained that. What about the vouchers? What if they go away? Well, I've had some meetings down in Indianapolis, and I was pretty much told they're not going away. In fact, they're only going to get bigger. The legislators are committed to it. It's too big right now. And even if, worst case scenario, if it ever went away, there'd be this huge grandfathered clause in, but they're looking at making it bigger and bigger. And I also asked, what if you ever, as a Christian school, were told we had to do something that we couldn't follow as a Christian school? They were very clear that that's why they call it the Indiana Choice Program, that we have that choice and that freedom to govern the way we want to govern. It's also why they'll probably never, ever give a full voucher, because that allows to give us the flexibility to lead and govern the school according to the Bible. Enrollment projections, we're continuing working on that. We're already over 500. We're looking at continually growing. Our feeder schools are busting our cap that they're building. So the projections are going high, of going over 550 probably relatively soon. And is this building ready for additional phase? Yes, we built it to be phased. You can see that there's a lot of places that aren't necessarily concrete or stone on the sides. That's where this expansion will happen. So those are the big questions. And for now, you're going to hear a lot more, but we're excited. We're not just talking about this in theory now. We're going, it's go time. So we're going to take advantage of these next few months to see how much we can do. I'm going to give you a number of what we've raised so far soon, but we're still looking at some of that. But we've had a great response to get this thing going. And I'm excited that there's a really, really awesome chance of really knocking some of this stuff out right away. So anything you can do, you'll get that pledge card in the mail. But if you're really excited and want to get on this right away, you can give me a call and we'll start knocking some of these things out. You're also going to be hearing a lot from me probably weekly, or updating you on the progress and the heart and the vision of what's going to happen in those spaces. Because again, a building is a tool. It's a tool that helps us educate these kids with a passion for God, people, and the world in the best way possible. Thank you for all your commitment to this, and I'm excited about this project. I hope you are too.